Hi, this is Lori with Time to Be Creative, and today I'm going to start a video series on building a journal, scrapbook album, mini album, whatever you'd like to call it. I have a few subscribers who have asked how I built this book. I did this a few years ago. It's with a graphic 45 French country paper, and so I'm going to show you how I did this. It won't be exactly the same, but the same idea, same concept, in the same way that I put the book together. This time I'm going to use a smaller paper palette from graphic 45. It's called Seasons. So I do have not a tutorial, I have a flip through of this on my I have two YouTube accounts. And on my Time to Be Creative account, you'll see the flip through of this book. I am now trying to put all of my videos on my Pink Girly YouTube account. Apparently, if you have two accounts, you can't combine them easily or at all. So, well, it's a long story. So let's just say I have two accounts. You can find me either at Time to Be Creative or Pink Girly, and today I'm going to start building a book using graphic 45 Seasons. And this is the tablet of paper that I had in my stash. It's just an 8x8, and I love graphic 45 paper. It's very nice to work with, and the images are just beautiful. And so I'm going to be using envelopes to create my pages, and just going to go over supply lists. Now you can use any paper that you might have in your stash, or if you'd like to purchase something new, you can certainly do that, but this is what I have, and this is what I'm going to use for this project. And so I have a little supply list here. I'm hoping that you can see that well enough. And you're going to need some envelopes to follow this technique of building a book. Your paper palette, paper pad that you like. Black cardstock. Now, if you would prefer to use something different, now the envelopes I have were given to me by a friend, and they're white. I don't really want white envelopes. I like to build my books on black cardstock. So if you're going to purchase envelopes, or if you have envelopes in your stash that you can use and they're black or a color that works with your paper or your project, but by all means go ahead and use those. But I'll show you how I'm going to adapt my white envelopes to work with the book that I'm making. And I like to have 65-pound cardstock, and I also like to have the 110 to use with for my photo mats to slip into the pockets. You don't need the 110. If you have it, great. If you want to get it, fine. You can use the 65 certainly, but my personal preference is I like to use the 110. A paper trimmer is very handy. A scoreboard is very really good to have if you can have one. If you don't have one, I'll show you how you can use your paper trimmer to score lines as well. You'll need some glue. I like to use Mod Podge. I also use the dry paper glue tape and score tape. And you'll need some chipboard or some lightweight cardboard to make the cover of our book. And a few things that are optional. I like to ink the edges of my pages. Not everybody's into that look, so that would be a personal preference. But if you do like that look, you'll need an ink pad and an inker. I also like to use some punches and maybe some stamps. I have embellishments, magnets, different things like that to help just personalize and give your book some character. But they're certainly optional. You don't need those to build a book. And of course, having a ruler and a pair of scissors handy is always a good thing. So like I said, I'm going to use the Graphic 45 Seasons paper pad. Now I've taken a lot of pages out of this because I've been doing some prep work for the video. So just quickly, I think I left enough pages in here for you to get an idea of what this tablet looks like. Let's just see if that's try not to get a glare on this for you. So it's spring, summer, autumn, and winter, and this is the spring page. Graphic 45 paper is double-sided, so you have this beautiful floral print on the back. And then with this tablet, you get little tags and cards that you can cut out for each season. And then, of course, that has a back side as well. Now, I decided, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. And so that's springtime. And then they have their summer with the sunflowers and summer flowers. And then this floral design on the back of summer. And again, the little cards that can be cut out and things that can be used to decorate the book. And then on the back of that one is this beautiful orange with the muted colored flowers. I just love that. And then we have autumn, all basically laid out the same. And then the back of the autumn paper is pumpkins and birds and your sunflowers. And then your cutouts for autumn. And I think you get 3 of each sheet. This is the winter. And then this, another floral design on the back. And it's got pine cones, little birds, oranges. Very pretty. And then, of course, the cards that go with the winter theme. And then on the back of this is a striped blue paper. So that's what I'm working with. And like I said, the envelopes that I'm using were given to me. A friend had a bunch of these envelopes that she wasn't going to use. So I thought, well, let me use these for pages of a book. So what I did was I cut it down to the size. I just randomly cut. I should have measured and probably done a more specific size. But when you get your envelope, you're going to decide what size book you want to make, what size pages you're going to want to work with. So I took off the sealed end of the envelope and then I just randomly, it ended up being this envelope is 7 and I think 1/8 by 7. So not that I need another page, but then you just cut where you want, depending on the envelope you're using and what size you want. And so what this does is it makes like a tube, really. But we're going to attach this to our spine. This will be our pocket, and then we'll decorate these pages. So I decided to have 6 pages in my book. So you want to decide how many pages, the size of your envelopes that you're going to use. Cut off both ends so you have that pocket. Other videos that I've watched recommend that you use even pages. So I decided on 6 pages for this book. You want to be careful because if your book gets too many pages, then you got to consider your spine's going to be very wide and your book's going to be very large. This is kind of a square surface, not quite square, so it'll be a nice area to decorate and to do things with. And it's just kind of different from what I've done before, so I just decided on the square. But like I said originally, I'm not crazy about the white, so I'm going to show you how I'm going to overcome that. So then the next thing I would suggest that you do is that you decide what paper you want to use for your cover, because then you want to make sure you don't use those. Now, if you have a couple tablets of paper that you're using, and you've got plenty of paper, that might not be a concern for you, but I'm limited to this one tablet of 8x8 paper, so I wanted to make sure that I had something set aside. So I decided to go with this printed green in this paper tablet that I'm going to use for my cover. And I will cover the binding with black paper, and then I'll use this to incorporate the theme of the book, and then I'll embellish on top of this to decorate my book. All right. So then what I did was I went through and I laid out my pages and decided what I was going to do to make sure I have enough paper and to kind of get an idea of what direction I was going to go. And so that's what I have here for you to look at. Now, I used some Post-it notes and make some notes and went through and decided how I'm going to lay out my paper. So these are my envelopes that I cut down. You see I have the little, we'll make the little pocket there. And then I went ahead and I measured and I cut what I needed for my book. I think I have my book backwards. I'll lift this side up. So this is going to be, I'm going to have my front cover here and then my first page. And so I decided to trim off some of the design for the spring, summer, and fall pages. They're all basically the same. I cut out my black 65-pound cardstock to fit right on my envelope. Now, for me to do measurements, if you want to know what measurements I use, just you can message me and I'll tell you. But I think this is 7 1/8 by 7. But if you use a different envelope, your measurements are going to be different. So you need to measure according to your project. And like I said, I didn't want the white. I like to work on the black surface. So that's going to get glued down. And then I measured a smaller size of the paper pad. And that will get glued on there. Now when I do that and I glue this together, there's a chance that you're going to see white. So I inked the edges of my envelope. I don't know if you can see that. If I hold it this way, maybe you can see. I inked all 4 edges. Okay? And I just pick up this stuff, Studio G, and what I like about this, it's inexpensive. It gives you a really nice coverage, and it's like a sponge. So I don't need an applicator. So all I do is I just have to run that across the edge of the paper. And that will take away the white starkness because I don't like it. That may not bother you. And if you're going to use a white envelope, but I'll show you what I mean because I didn't ink them all. So I could show you what I mean. If you can really see it. But see, when you glue your edges down, your paper down, and you look at that edge, see, to me that's a glaring white line. I don't want that. So that's why I inked my edges. And I'll ink the rest of those. I don't know that I need to do that on camera. Okay, so then I'm going to have my spring. So I'm laying out my pages. And I decided I'm going to put a corner pocket on this page. And then who knows what else will happen once we get going. And then I used the matching paper for the opposite page. And then I decided I'm going to do some kind of a flip up page. So I want to plan ahead, because if I just sit down and do this and I decide and I glue everything down, and then I want to put a page that flips up here or flips out, or an extra page in here, and I've got everything glued down, then I have to figure out how to hide raw edges. So I'm trying to plan ahead and decide how I want my pages to lay out so that I can glue everything down that needs to be glued down. I can hide magnets, I can hide the raw edges of the pages that are going to flip. So it's the same on the back side of this page. I used the summer. I trimmed it out. Now I'm going to ink these edges too, so I'll show you that as well. And then this was on the back of the cutouts. And I like the way the orange looked with that. And this one I decided I'm going to flip out a page to the right with a pocket on this main page. None of this is set in stone. Then I decided I don't know what I want for the center. So I may do a collage of all the 4 seasons. I'll see what kind of paper I have left over, and hopefully that's going to work out and, you know, won't be a nightmare. So these are plain for right now. Then I have my autumn. This one, let's see, I'm going to do a small page on top, right hand side, and then maybe a journal space on the main page. The other challenging part is once you write yourself notes, remembering what you meant when you wrote them. Then we have winter, and that's the coordinating paper there. Might do a flip down on this one, or maybe a gate fold opening. I don't know what I want to do quite yet. Then on the back page, maybe a split pocket, and then I'll have the back page of the inside cover book, which I'll probably do some kind of belly band, and I'm going to coordinate that with the front inside cover. Now, the other issue for me when I'm using envelopes that are not the color that I want, like the book, the French country book that I did, I had black envelopes, so that worked out really great. But the other thing you have to consider is when you put your mat in and you open this up, you're going to see this glaring white on the inside of the pocket. I don't like that either. So I took some strips. I don't have quite enough. I have to cut a couple of more. So I cut a couple of strips of some of the leftover paper when I trimmed off for my pages of scraps. And I'm going to ink these edges. And they're going to slip in there. And that will look really nice instead of seeing that glaring white when you slide your photo mat in and out. All right. And then I'm probably going to punch a little indentation here too, because when I put my mats in, I have my cards. I have my 110 cardstock. Now I've already pre-cut these, so I'm prepared. I decided to round my edges. That's just with a punch. And because I'm limited with how much paper I have from the Graphic 45 tablet, I had some parchment paper in my stash, so I just cut that. That will be on one side. Now I can stamp on this. I can glue images on here from the paper pack. I can leave it plain, put some lines for journaling, and then on the other side will be some of the paper from the palette. Now I just got to make sure I have the birds going the right way. And then I'll put a little tab on the end, so that on the edge, so that when this slides in, you can easily pull it out. It'll look real cute. All right. So that's basically what we're going to do. Now I'm just going to show you a few things. I do have black paper cut out for here. I'm not ready to glue everything down yet. Like I said, I want to ink my edges. And for that, I'm going to use this Tim Holtz Distress Ink Gathered Twigs. This is a new color for me, a new ink for me. I generally use Vintage Photo, which I absolutely love. But I saw a girl working on a project and she used the Gathered Twigs, and I really liked the way that looked and the coloring of it. I'm into the vintage, antique-y looking kind of thing. So, I don't want to get this all over my work area. Now, the only thing I don't like about, I mean, this ink lasts quite a long time, so I purchased a set that had a lot of these small ones in it, so I have a lot of different colors, because I also just purchased, they have the Distress inks, and they also have Distress oxides. Oh my gosh, that's a whole nother thing. I love those too. But I have a hard time, I have some arthritis in my hands, and I have a hard time opening up these little boxes. You probably will not have this much trouble. And I should have done this before I put the camera on, but I didn't remember. Now the difference with this ink pad versus the Studio G, this is a more solid pressed kind of material, and really doesn't ink edges, or really on your surface, like this little spongy one does. So you're really better served to have some kind of a sponge applicator, and these work pretty well. And of course, this is a Tim Holtz thing too. They have the rectangle and they have this round. And I'm just going to assume that some of you may not have experience doing some inking, or even putting a scrapbook like this together. And so I'm going to just pretend like you don't know anything. So you want to ink your edges, because that's a white surface, and that really, once you start decorating your book, you'd be surprised how that's like glares and really sticks out. And so you just put a little bit of ink onto your little applicator and just rub around your edges, and it's just going to take off that stark white. And then what's recommended is, when you're going to ink your edges around your surface, you just come from off of the page in a circular motion. Now you can put as much of this on or as little. And like I said earlier, you may not even like to do this. You may like the brighter colors and not give it a vintage, old, worn kind of a look. All right. Now I'm going to try to do this tutorial and do it maybe in like 4 different videos, so they're not too terribly long, but we'll just see how that goes. Because while I did a lot of prep work for this video, now see, I kind of got it really kind of dark there. So if I decide I don't like that when I start putting the book together, I might just put something over top of that. So no stress. See, that just kind of makes it look old and vintage. Now you may like to keep this nice and bright on the inside, but you could also come in here and add a little color on the inside too. Now we might cover some of this up when we start decorating. I'm going to do underneath that ribbon. You could do some in your flowers. Whatever you like, whatever your taste is, let your creative side come out. See, now we're going to glue that down, but I'm not ready to do that yet because I'm not totally sure of 100% what I'm going to do with my pages. So that will get glued onto here. So you won't see any of that white. Now I also want to then carry through that theme these little inside strips. Now for my book, I decided I wanted about 1.5 inches in, and I'm going to do the same thing, and of course it measures 7 inches, which will slip in my pocket very easily. And I don't know that I'm that terribly concerned. I mean, you can make yourself crazy with this stuff, but I'm not terribly concerned with, because all the paper works together. If you're familiar with graphic 45 paper at all, it's like, to me, it's like the bomb. It's like it's so great to work with. And a lot of their different palettes of paper work with each other. So I'm not too concerned that this matches what's on this cover, although, you know, maybe I should be. But one thing I will tell you is dry tape is really nice to use, but when you're trying to get it inside of a pocket like this, if that sticks down with that tape, you don't have any wiggle room. You don't have any extra time. You like got to get it right and get it down. So I'm going to use wet glue to put this inside. Now the other thing that I've done in the past, which is not a good thing, is say like I'll punch, take a circle punch and do a little half circle so that my tab can be seen. I don't know if I did it for this book. Yeah, see, I don't know if you can see it here. See, I did like a little half circle punch. Well, if you do that too soon, or you do that before you have your paper glued, then you have to eyeball that and line that up, and it's annoying. And then you have to try to get it in the right spot where you want your tag to be on. So I'm kind of waiting on that too, but I'm going to definitely punch a little spot for my tabs to stick out in this book as well. Now you don't have to do that. You may not like that, and you may not. I purchased a while ago. It's I think it's discontinued. I think they call them a whale's tail punch, because that's what it looks like. It looks like a whale's tail. This one is discontinued, and it's a tab. And this is by, I think it's EK Stamps. Love this punch. So the way this looks is when you punch that, it just looks almost like a file folder tab. But you may not have something like this, and that's fine. You could use 2 circles, you could use 2 squares, you may have a little flower punch that you like. It doesn't have to be like this, but this punches out like this, and then you just fold it in half. And that would just go on the edge of your photo mat, and that, you know, kind of sticks out like a file folder at the end of your page. Now I've been doing some altered books journaling as well, and you can use a variety of things. You could use some old lace, you could use a piece of muslin, you could use an old ticket. Just depends on the style of your book and what things you like. You know, for this, I mean, really, for this spring page, you pick out something. You know, we could use a butterfly to make your tab. You're not limited. Whatever your imagination. And if it's for you, if the book is for you, put things in there that you like. If it's for a gift and you're doing it for a friend or a family member, add some things that they like. I mean, maybe the person likes animals and likes dogs or cats. You could stamp out or go online and print out a paw, or you could draw one, cut it out, and use the little paws for the little edges of your pages. But it is convenient to be able to have a little handle of sorts to then go ahead and grab your photo mat to pull it out. All right. So these kind of go with spring. This is my spring page. So what I'm going to do is, now this is another tip I'm going to give you. I like to use Mod Podge, not for everything. I find that it doesn't really dry completely if you're using it for an outside surface on a project. Say if you're decoupaging on a can or a wooden box or one of those crepe paper boxes. For whatever reason, it doesn't seem to dry real well for me. But I love it for scrapbooking because it's not as liquidy or doesn't have as much water content, I don't think, as say white glue or Elmer's glue. And so when I use it, I don't really get any kind of a ripple. So I just absolutely love it. And whatever you use it for, I mean, it really stays in place. Some folks like to use, what do they call that? Stick glue, glue stick. I haven't found one that really sticks well enough for me. Now, a lot of my things that I make, I'm in a co-op and I sell my things. So I don't want to sell something that's going to fall apart. So I stay away from a glue stick. So I use Mod Podge, and I use the dry tape. I'll show you probably at some point the dry tape in the runner. I think they call it an ATG gun or whatever. And scored tape, of course, I use that for building the book and the spine and stuff because that's really strong and will hold your book together. Anyway. So what I do is I like to use these little needle nose bottles because you can get a real thin bead of glue on your project. Now hopefully this isn't clogged. That's the only trouble with these, because sometimes it clogs. And of course this one looks like it's clogged. And then I need to find something I can clear that let's see if this will work. Clear that. Just use a little. These come with a little cap, but my cap fell apart, or so I'm just gonna. Sometimes the glue just gets a little dried up in that little nozzle. And this is real grungy. I should have cleaned this off. I apologize, but I am a messy crafter. All right, so I'm going to put a little bead of glue just around the outside edges. I'm going to get as close to the edge as I can. And then I'm going to slide this in the pocket. And then when I decide to put my punch opening where I want, I'll just punch right through this, and then I'll go back and ink my edge. So this can be a little bit fiddly, but like I said, with the Mod Podge, you've got some wiggle room and some time, where if you use the dry tape, don't mind me, I just wipe it on my hand and then I clean it off later. So you want to make sure that's down in there pretty well. I've got a little bit of an edge, I might have to trim that. So I'm busy talking. So you just want to go in there and try to just smoosh it down. Okay. Just make sure you get a good stick. Now see, I'm a little bit over here. That will bother me, so I'll trim that off. Then I'm going to flip it over and do the other side. And like I said, when you're doing your own project, your own size envelopes, you just measure what will fit inside your envelope. And if you're using, like I said, a black envelope or gray or a tan color, you won't need to do this unless you like the way it looks, and then you can do it. And the Mod Podge seems to like stick pretty quickly, so that's why I got off on that one end. So just slip it down. And you've got that done. And then when that dries real well, like I said, I'll trim that off. And that'll be, that won't be too hard because I don't have the page attached to the spine yet. I decided to do all this kind of work before I put the pages on the spine so that I can mess around with it a little easier. Now I'm just going to show you, because this first page, my spring page, I decided to do all my flip ups and fold outs and all that jazz on the pages that are not that are the plain pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and get this glued down, and then I'm going to glue it onto my page. So that's when I'm going to use my tape runner. This is not the best thing to do because then these kind of rust. But like I said, I flipped my lid, lost it, and have no idea where it is. Alright, so they have a lot of different brands in these, and they have different sizes. This is I have a 1/4 inch and I have the 1/2 inch. I don't have any tape for my 1/4 inch. And you just refill it as you need to, and it's just like, it's got this little trigger, and you press, drag as you're pulling the trigger, and then just lift up and it dispenses glue, and it's double-sided. And I would recommend working on a surface where it doesn't stick. This is my little work mat that's nothing supposed to stick to. You want to get as close to the edge as you can. And you just run your tape down. I'm pulling the trigger, and then I release the trigger and just pull up. Now this stuff, like I said, is great, but you have no wiggle room, no time. Once it's down, it is down. And if you don't get real close to the edge, sometimes you can put a little white glue in there, or go back over and do the edge. The other thing with this kind of glue is, this is a little gross, it's kind of like that booger glue that, stuff comes in the mail and you can rub it off. So if you get some on the outside edge, you really just rub it with your finger and you can get rid of it real easy. Now, for my project, I have to be careful because this isn't square. I want to make sure. See, because that's a perfect fit there because I, measured it right. But if I put it on this way, it doesn't work. And I put this on, then I'm in trouble. I want to make sure I have everything lined up correctly so that my words are the way they are supposed to be. So I eyeball everything. I don't measure and make myself crazy. These are handmade things. And I don't do numbers very well, and I don't measure very well. And I'm just going to take my bone folder and just give that a good press to make sure that I've got a good stick. Okay. Now that's ready to put on my page. Now before I do that, I want to trim this little edge off. Because it'll just be easier. Okay. And I'm going to use the dry glue tape again to tape that on. So same process. You can see that a little better. Even though it's on the black, you can see the shiny surface where the glue is adhered. Now, I like to kind of tap down my top edge first and line it up. And then do down the side. You'll find your own way. And then you want to make sure again you get a good stick. So that's going to be our first page. And then we'll decorate or put a pocket on here, do something. And then that opens up and we'll be able to slide in our mat. Now, I didn't cut all my pages because I wanted to show you those images in the tablet. And like I said, I didn't have, I just had the one small tablet of paper. So I used parchment paper. I cut this mat. This is what I cut out of the 110 cardstock, and that will slide in like that. And it fits both ways, but I want to make sure I have enough. It's a little tighter that way. But I want to make sure that once I put this on my spine, you know, I'm not going to have a lot hanging out the end. So I think I want it this way. Well, you know what? I could measure. So I'm 6 3/4 this way, and no, yeah, 6 7/8 this way. So I think that's good. Now, same process. I don't want this to be plain. I want to ink my edge so that it matches the rest of the book. And those little ones are really stinkers to get open. Now I'll I'll decide what I'm going to do to decorate maybe this mat. Now this could just have a big photo on it or a couple photos, and you could journal on it. But I do want to ink my edges. If I decide that it's going to be a journaling page, you know, I can address that later. It's not crucial. And I don't always do everything in the same order, the same fashion. It's just whatever comes to my mind, and I just do it. So I'm going to attach this to this side. And then I think I want... I have one sheet of my spring paper. So I'm going to use this. Now I made a template so I can remember what sizes I need. So for the topper of my mat, I need 6.5 by 6 1/4. So I'm going to get my paper trimmer. And on my trimmer, I like my paper trimmer, but the joint is right here at an inconvenient spot. So I'm going to measure 6 1/4, which is right here. Now I have to think about this because I want to make sure my flowers are going in the right direction. So this is my long side. Yeah, so I want this 6.5 on this side. So I have to turn it this way. And I want to do my first cut for 6 1/4. So I'm going to go this way. And then because my 6.5 is in a spot where I really can't see it, I'm just going to take, this is 8-inch paper, I'm just going to take my 1.5 off of here. And then I'm going to take off my little top that attaches to the tablet. And I'm probably not really in screen there, but I'm sure you've all used a paper trimmer. And then I'm going to round my edges. And this is one of my favorite tools. This is by Memory Keepers, I believe, and I'm sure you can get them from all different companies, but I absolutely love my corner trimmer. And then again, I'm going to ink my edges real quick. And then I'm going to do around the outside edge like we did the front of our page. Now you don't have to do this. You could really make this like a regular photo mat. You could put the corners in where if pictures could be slipped in. You can cut slots where you can slip in photographs. That's upside down. But I like it like this. So, and this is like the other book that I made, so I'm really trying to stay a little true to what I did before in that other project. Oh goodness, I hope you're not seeing. I just clicked something on my computer. Alright, so I'm going to use my tape runner again. Now I'm trying to not get myself twisted around and make sure I have this on the right way. And you can buy little tiny tape runners. You know, some of them are refillable, some of them aren't. I think they're a little on the pricey side, and if you do a lot of this kind of work, you know, you may want to invest in the tape runner. Plus at AC Moore, Michaels, Joann Fabrics, see it there, I'm just rubbing off a little bit of glue that was outside the line. You can use the coupon and get them for a pretty good price. And that's going to go there. And that's the way I want my flowers. This way. I'm just going to eyeball it. Press that down. Now you can use the Mod Podge if you want. That would not be a problem. So there's our mat, and then I pre-cut with some of the scraps these little tabs to go on the edge of our mats. So I'm just trying to see which ones I think I might like here. This one's got purple in it. And so I'm just going to fold this in half. And I'm going to want to attach that. And I'm going to ink the edges of this as well, because I love it. So I'm just going to show you this one page, and then off camera I will put the rest of this together. And the next video I think we'll start addressing the right hand side of the book and you know, doing those flip ups and pull out pages and whatnot. So now I have my page. I just did the one side. Spring. Now this is what I have to be careful of, because this is going to be the inside front cover. See, I would have attached that. And so my mat is going to go in on this side. So my little handle has to be over here. So I'm going to punch here. I generally just use a regular round circle punch. You can use any size that you might like. Let's see. I know it's in here somewhere. I think this is probably a 1/2 inch punch. So I'm just gonna come in here, open my page, and just decide where I want that punch. Now this one's been sticking on me, but it's behaving. So just do like a little half moon punch. Now you see I put my mistake number one, I put my little decoration on the wrong side because I wasn't thinking about that. So now I have to come back in here and redo that. So I'll do that off camera as well. So then what I like to do is I like to slip in my mat. Right to the edge. And then I'll put a little pencil mark. A real light little pencil mark so I know where I want my tab. And that's going to go right there. And then I'll use the wet glue for this. And then I want that to be able to stick together. So I'll put a little bit there and then on both sides. Well, at least my flowers are going in the right direction. That's one plus. And I'll have to get some more of my scraps. And, oh, bummer. It's really not a big deal, but I hate to waste paper, especially graphic 45 paper. So this is how this will go. And that's the first page. Now the adjoining page, I'm going to do some kind of a flip up, but I don't want each individual video to be too long. So I'm going to say goodbye for today. And I'll see you in part 2 as we continue to build the Graphic 45 mini album with a paper palette called Seasons. Thanks for watching. Oh, and if you remember and if you found this interesting, give me a thumbs up. Thanks. See you next time. Bye-bye.